Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria Online. It's lovely to have you here with us today. And if you haven't joined us before, my name is Carrie Hunter, and I'm the Spiritual Director of the CSL Victoria, and really give you a warm welcome here. As with other centers and churches in the area, we are, of course, locked down at the moment and just coming to you today by Zoom. Also, this will be recorded today so that it can be watched later on our website at www.cslvictoria.org or on our Facebook page. But we would love to see you in the flesh when we can all be together again, because we're really missing the physical presence of one another. It's still lovely to see everyone's faces online. And we just really hope that you've had a really joyful Christmas. And so today, the title of my message is Get Ready. And of course, that refers to a new year that is looming, just 5 days away. And what I really prayed for and wished in my heart this Christmas for each one of you was that you would find joy in your hearts on Christmas Day, that you would find a way during this time that has been a different kind of Christmas for us all, a time to be joyful, a time to reflect on past Christmases, to connect with those that you love by phone, Zoom, or however you do connect with one another, and that you would feel that special wonder of Christmas in your hearts, even though it's a different kind of Christmas. And I know that I wasn't feeling very Christmassy for about a week beforehand. And then as the day was getting closer, I was starting to get excited. And I think there's perhaps a cellular memory of some kind of that joy that we felt as little children, knowing that Christmas was approaching, and the joy that we typically feel when we're all getting together with our families and so on. And so I was really wishing that for everyone this year. And what I personally found during this season was I was reminded of the things that are really important to me, because this wasn't a typical Christmas. And so what I realized was that it's the connection with family and friends, with the people that I love so much. It was thinking about all of the things that I value throughout the year. And it wasn't about accumulating things. It wasn't about presents under the tree. And I think that's perhaps one of the special gifts that we all got. It's, how many people have I heard say, I just miss the hugs so much. We miss those hugs on Sundays when we're together with one another. And during the pandemic, we haven't been able to even do that. But those are the things that we value. It's that connection, it's that expression of love that each of us has for one another and for those in our lives, and for all of the blessings that we do have. What a wonderful time to look and just be grateful for the many things that we have, knowing that so many in the world do not have all of those things. And so for me, it was a very special time. And as I said, it's 5 days left until 2021. And I've had so many people say they simply can't wait to give this year the boot and to start a brand new year. And we tend to think of the brand new year as having a clean slate where we get to start everything new again. And that's true. But we also can't expect that everything is going to be absolutely different on January 1st. We are still going to have the COVID virus around. Excuse me a second. Excuse me. There are some things that are not going to change miraculously in a minute, although we would love to have that happen. And so what we need to remember is that if we want things to be different, if we want to be happier, if we want to feel more fulfilled, if we want to have some things change in our lives and change for the better, then it's up to us. It's up to us to shift our consciousness, to do that inner work that is going to make that happen. If we want to be happy, then we need to make that choice to be happy. We can't expect, as I so often say, to do everything the same way today as we've always done it and expect a different result tomorrow. Einstein said that was the definition of insanity. And it's the same thing with the new year. We cannot expect the new year to be different unless we make some changes in our own lives. And and so that's something that during the next 5 days, I think we can start preparing for. We can get ready. We can decide what it is that we want in our new year, how we want to be, how we want to express ourselves in the new year, and what exactly is it that we need to do in order to do that. You know, it's a time of year so many people make resolutions, but it's it's so easy to break those. You know, it's about going to the gym or walking a certain number of kilometers every day, or doing some kind of a workout, going on a diet, all kinds of things. And those things typically don't last very long. After a few weeks, every gym owner will tell you that everything just drops off. People have good intentions. And so what this really takes is not resolutions, but it takes commitment, and it takes a shift in consciousness. We need to be looking at what it is that we want from exercise, or what we want from diet, what we want from anything in our lives we would typically have a resolution about. What is the end result? And then to see ourselves that way. And as we see ourselves that way, we are beginning to shift our consciousness and to become what it is that we want to see, what it is that we want to experience. It's our approach to the new year that really matters. It's what we hold in our hearts, what we hold that is dear to us, what we what we find in our lives each day that can make us joyful. And if you think about it, and gratitude, if you think about it, there is something every day that where we can do that. We can find something that we've laughed about. Um, it might be some silly little thing. We can find things to be grateful for always, whether it simply is waking up in the morning. But there are always things throughout our day where we can say thank you. I know whenever I immerse myself into a wonderful hot bath, I say, oh, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful hot water. We're so lucky to have it here, and it feels so good this time of year. There are there are things that we take for granted. And so I think it's an important time to kind of look at those things and say, I'm not going to take those for granted anymore. I'm going to express my gratitude. I'm going to make that shift as we come into the new year. And the thing is, you know, New Year's prayers are so much more powerful than New Year's resolutions. If you really think about that, in our prayers, uh, you know, we can send our love to all humankind. We can forgive ourselves for the foolish things that we may have done in the last year. We can forgive others if we are blaming others for things that we don't feel have gone right in our lives, and we're perhaps blaming. And yet we know in our hearts that we can't blame anybody but ourselves for anything, because it is the way that we accept things that makes the difference. And so it's really important for us to start thinking about how we can set up our coming years, set up our lives so that we can be happier, so that we can experience more joy, no matter what's going on. And I was thinking yesterday of an old friend of mine who lives in Canmore, Alberta, which, if you don't know Canmore, it's just east of Banff. It's about a 20-minute drive from Banff. And my friend Betty is quite a bit older than I. And she had the start of dementia many years ago. And I used to go down on Saturdays or Sundays and take her out, because it was something that I felt I could do that could help a little bit. She had full-time caregivers the rest of the week, but I liked to help out on a Saturday if I could. And Betty had a wonderful, wonderful outlook on life, even though her memory was failing significantly. And she said that from the time she could remember, that she decided that happiness was based upon the choices that she made. And she said that meant having one thing every day to look forward to. And then once a week to do something that was extra special, and once a month to do something that was even more special than that. And so what I learned from Betty was that what she looked forward to every day that made her happy was to go to Starbucks. And on Saturday morning, when I would take her into Starbucks, as her caregivers did the rest of the week, we'd go through the door and everybody would shout, "Betty!" And it's sort of like the program Cheers, if you ever watched it on TV, when people would walk into the bar, or Norm would walk in and everybody'd say, "Norm." And it was like that with Betty. And she would just light up and smile and would sit down at a table and people would talk and she would understand some things and not others, and she could participate in some of the conversation and not in some other things. But that made her happy for that day. It was, oh, she could tell me who she had met at the table, those that she knew, and sometimes she could tell me little things about them. And then once a week, what she looked forward to was inviting a number of friends to go to the local golf club for dinner. She was incredibly wealthy and she would treat people to dinner. So there would be anywhere between 4 and 20 people for dinner on one night of the month. And that was her really special thing for the month. And sometimes she would go more often than that, but it was the one thing that really gave her a lot of pleasure. And something else that gave her a lot of pleasure that she never talked about, I don't think she was even aware of it, was that she had great compassion for people who were alone. And if we walked into a restaurant anywhere for lunch and there was someone sitting alone, she would go up to that person and introduce herself. And she would say, "What's your name? And would you like to come and join us for lunch?" And I had started to tease her that I called her Betty. Nobody is a stranger, because no one was a stranger to her. She had kind of almost she hadn't been like that her whole life, but it was almost as if she no longer had the ability, which was a blessing, to think of anyone as a stranger. She looked at everyone. She just wanted other people to be happy. And then once a year, she would want to do something that was really, really special. And that would sometimes mean a few days out of town somewhere with one of her caregivers. They would go somewhere and stay. One of the things she loved to do was to go to Lake Louise and stay at the Post Hotel at Lake Louise with one of her caregivers. It was a beautiful place, wonderful food, wonderful staff, and everybody knew her because the owners used to ski race, and Betty was always a skier. So I was thinking about that yesterday and I thought, what a wonderful way to set up your life, doing one thing each day that makes you really happy, and then something a little bit more special each week and each month, and then plan something special once a year that you can do that is going to enrich your life in some way. You know, I saw this woman who said she didn't have a spiritual bone in her body. She didn't believe in anything, but she believed in joy and she believed in happiness. And I saw how she made it happen. And it's such a reminder to us that we all have a choice about how we can do these things in our lives, how we can enrich our own lives. And there are many, many ways that we can do it. But this time of year, as we start to release so many things, it's kind of a purification process. As we do, the love kind of wells up within us, and we start to feel a deeper gratitude for everything. We let go of all of that old stuff that's bothered us this past year. And we do wipe our own slates clean, and we do get to start writing something new on them. And it's such an important thing to do. And I think, all of us just want to be happy. Um, we want abundant lives. That doesn't mean having a lot of money, although having lots of money is a nice thing too. But it means having wonderful relationships with people. It means having love in our lives. It means doing things that we love to do. It means having meaningful work or meaningful hobbies, whatever it might be. And it often means volunteering to do some good things, because there's absolutely nothing that makes you feel better than that. I remember a friend of mine in Vancouver who was a doctor said that whenever people are depressed, what they really need to do is to go and volunteer somewhere, because as soon as they start volunteering, that something happens, something changes inside them, and they become much happier people. And he said it's about getting out of our own way, out of our own minds, out of our own problems and troubles, and basically focusing upon other people. And so it's something that we really need to be considering too, especially during this time. What is it that we can do? And I want to read something that Ernest Holmes wrote about this time of year and about happiness. And he said, "The thing is, it's never too late to begin to get ready." He wrote, "We're born to be happy. We're born to be creative. We're born to love. We're born to sing and to dance and to express ourselves to the fullest." He said, "We're not only born to be happy, but to be abundantly supplied with every good thing, to have fun in living, to consciously unite with the divine power that is around us and within us, and to grow and expand forever. We don't have to wait another minute looking for the secret to success or happiness. The door is already open to anyone who chooses to enter. We have the freedom to choose. And in this brand new baby year that's about to begin, let us decide what it is that we want to choose for this year. And let's just let go of all of the negativity, of all of the worry, all of the fuss about COVID. We have protocols that we follow because we love and respect one another and because we want everyone to be safe. But we don't have to be unhappy about that. We know we're going to be together again. We know that this too is going to pass. We know that the duration of any virus, serious or not so serious, is typically 2 years. And there's a vaccine right now. Um, how did America, they called it was happening at warp speed. Well, that's not quite true. It seemed to happen at warp speed. But the thing is, this virus is a version of the SARS virus. And the SARS virus finished before a vaccine was developed. But scientists were working on the vaccine at that time. And so this time they were able to pick that up right away where they left off, and to basically speed things through in a way that wouldn't typically have happened. And so there is a vaccine. There are a couple of vaccines. Actually, I think there's a third one that's about to come out as well. So let us know that there is always hope and that there is always a way out of these things. And let's maintain our positivity about it. We don't need to be talking about it all the time. We don't need to be thinking about it all the time. Let's focus our minds upon things that give us joy and that make us happy. There's a formula for happiness that Dr. Holmes talked about, and it was presence and perspective and gratitude equal happiness and joy and fulfillment. Presence, perspective, and gratitude. Those are the essence for getting into a really, really happy life. And it's about, with the presence, we're feeling the presence within. We're feeling the presence of the divine within us. We were born with it. And when we pray and when we meditate, we can often feel that just rising up within us. And when we make that a regular thing in our lives, when we do it every day, we definitely start to feel it after a while. 21 days, that's the magic number for making something a habit. And when we don't miss, then that presence becomes larger and larger within us. And we begin to really know that we can make such a difference with everything in our lives because we have that power there supporting us every step of the way. It's truly a wonderful thing. And perspective is simply the way we look at things. How many of us always see our glass half full? Or how many of us see it half empty? Oh dear, if it's going to happen, if it's going to be bad, it's going to happen to me. Or on the other hand, life is wonderful. There's a gift in everything that happens. We need to be shifting into that glass that's half full. And then what we find happens is pretty soon it is 3/4 full, and then it's full, and then it's overflowing. And don't we all want a life that is just absolutely overflowing with the wonder? You know, we get to choose the life that we want to live, and clearing out the negativity this time of year, in this last 5 days of this year, is certainly a way to do it. You know, let's, with anything that's negative that's going on, just, I will no longer think it. I will no longer believe it. I will no longer dwell on it. I'm just going to let it go. The past cannot affect me. You know, Dr. Holmes said, principle has no precedent. In other words, the past has no precedent. Today is a brand new day. We get to choose today what tomorrow is going to look like and what all of our tomorrows are going to look like by holding them in consciousness, by holding that vision in our minds. That's what is really important, and that's the place that we need to get to in order to have a rich and fulfilling life. You know, it sounds good. It always sounds good. But sometimes if we're going through the dark night of the soul, we kind of think it's all woo-woo stuff. But it's not woo-woo. When we're going through the dark night of the soul, that's when we need to choose to rise above, to really look for the gifts, to look for the things that we can be grateful for. It's a beautiful thing to do. I recently read something that was in a, I had copied it out from one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. It was a Christmas book from quite a long time ago. And I was thinking about that and thinking about how giving and volunteering, but how giving makes such a difference to our lives. There was a man named Dan Clark, and he tells a story about a friend of his whose name was Paul. And Paul's brother was very wealthy, and Paul was pretty well off as well. Paul's brother gave him a beautiful luxury car for Christmas one year. And as Paul was about to get into his car, there was a little boy on the street near the car, and the little boy was in ragtag clothes, and he was looking at the car longingly. And so Paul stopped and talked to him, and he said, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're wishing. And the little boy said, well, I wish, and then his voice kind of trailed off, and the man said, you wish that you had a car like this. And the little boy said, oh, no. He said, I wish that I could give my little brother a car like this. And the man was really taken aback by that, and his heart just welled up. And he said to the little boy, you know, would you like to have a ride in my car? He said, I can drive you home. Where do you live? And the little boy said that he lived several blocks down the way. And he said he would love to have a ride. And so Paul helped him into the car and said, you know, I'll just drive past some of the Christmas lights so that you can see how beautiful everything is. And he did that. And then he pulled up in front of the little boy's home. And the little boy said, you know, would you please wait for a few minutes? There's something that I want to do. And so Paul said, yes, he would wait. And the little boy went into the house, and he was gone for a few minutes. And he came out carrying his little brother. And his little brother was disabled. He couldn't walk. And he took his little brother up to the car, and he said, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a car like this. Well, when I read that, my heart just expanded so much, and I had tears, and it still just chokes me up right now. And this is a true story. I mean, you know, when we think about what we can give to others rather than what we can receive ourselves, there is so much more meaning in our lives. There's so much more joy in our lives. We really need to be thinking about that more. It's what can we do for others instead of what can they do for us. 5 days to go. You know, Dr. Holmes said One of my favorite quotes of his: prepare yourself for the best that life has to offer. Prepare yourself for the best that life has to offer. Because when we prepare ourselves for the best that life has to offer, the best comes to us. And we prepare ourselves by getting rid of the negative stuff, by refusing to dwell upon negative things, by thinking about what we can do to help others, by thinking about what we can do to volunteer in our communities, or to do for others, to do for our loved ones, to do for those close to us, to do for absolute strangers. I was just, again, putting together some old coats to take down to our place to pass along, and they're in good condition, to pass along to people who don't have warm clothes this time of year. We've done this in the past as a center, and it's a simple thing to do, to simply go and drop these things off, or to make a gift to the mustard seed. People are struggling. They're struggling right now. And it's a way to make us feel so much better. There's a woman in Sydney where I live, and she's elderly. Her name is Zora, and she would happily tell you her name. And I used to see her when I would be driving around, and every day, summer and winter, she wears a winter coat and winter boots and has a scarf over her head. And she goes to all of the garbage bins along the street, and she takes out bottles, but she also takes out plastics and things and sorts them. She's got a big shopping cart. And at the end of every day, it's filled up. And when I first saw her, my heart was breaking. I thought, oh my goodness, we have somebody living in our community who is in need. And one day I was walking into Savon, and she was outside, and I went up and started to talk to her. And I asked her what her name was, and she said it's Zora. And I asked her where she lived, and she said she had a place to live down on 3rd Street. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine." And I pressed some money into her hand, and I said, "I'd like." She said, "Oh no, dear, you need this. You need." And I said, "No, no, I really want to give you this gift." And she was just shining, and she said, "Do you go to church?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Actually, I'm a minister." And she said, "Oh, what's your church?" And I said, "It's the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria." And she said, "Oh, I have friends who go there, Irene and Michelle." And and I just laughed out loud. I thought, Irene Parkinson and Michelle Marier are friends of Zora's. And I was talking about this to a dear friend of mine the other day, and mentioned that, that I saw Zora the other day again in Savon, because at the end of the day she'd take the bottles in and turn them in. But she would sometimes sit and have a sandwich and a cup of tea or something in the little seating area in Savon out here. And he said, "Oh, she lives across the street from me." I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes." And he said she's the kindest soul. And he said, all of the bottles and things that she collects and she gets the money for, she donates all of that to charity. Well, I was stunned. He said she's comfortable. She has a decent place to live. She doesn't want anything for herself. Everything she does for other people. And as he said that, I was remembering this great smile on her face the day that I spoke with her, and her bright eyes. She was absolutely glowing. And typically she's got her head down because she's pushing a shopping cart. And I had never seen that before. How meaningful she has made her life every day of the week, every day. Um, and I marvel at that. I, it's not a life that many of us would choose, but one of what she does, I think, gosh, I don't do nearly as much as she does. I don't think my heart has quite grown as big as hers. Um, I don't think there's a Grinch in my heart, but but to do what she does is absolutely extraordinary. And she's a senior, and that's the way that she spends her days. So during this time of year, as we're cultivating a happier existence, as we're cultivating a happier life, let's realize that we're actually called in the direction of good health, to run toward good health, to run toward an abundant life, to run toward love, to run toward peace. We have 5 days to leave the past behind. and to commit to a higher consciousness, to commit to follow that power, to feel that presence within us, to know that we each have within us the ability to be happy, to be joyful, but not only that, to give that happiness and that joy to other people, whether it's for a few minutes, for a few hours, for a few days, for a year, whatever. We all have that within us. And so, as I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking about Dr. Joe Hooper at the Palm Desert Center for Spiritual Living, the wonderful guy who writes beautiful music, and we have sung some of his songs at our center. And as the title of my talk today was Get Ready, I was remembering Joe's beautiful song, Get Ready, My Soul, I'm Diving In. So let us tell our souls to get ready, and let us dive in to the deepest place, to the most beautiful place, to the most loving place, creating the most wonderful, wonderful year that we can ever, ever imagine. I'm just so grateful for all of this, and I say thank you, and so it is.